So that's where we're at today. We're going to crack open the ultimate mystery box, the mind of Christ. And I'm not talking about painting a nice picture of Jesus and putting it on your wall. I'm talking about what happens when your own thinking gets hijacked, in the best way possible, by a consciousness that ain't yours. Think about your regular mind for a sec. It's like a browser with 50 tabs open. One's anxiety. Well, one's the grocery list, one's that thing someone said 5 years ago you're still mad about. It's chaos, it's stressful, it's small. But the mind of Christ, that's a whole different operating system. It's not out there. It's the very core of what you really are once you strip away all the noise. It's the place where just know that you're plugged into something infinite. It's pure peace. It's uncut power. It's fear doing a complete vanishing act. So what actually happens when this truth hits you not just in your head, but in your bones? When you get that you're not a lonely little boat trying to cross an ocean, but you are the ocean. Your whole world flips inside out. Problems don't disappear, you just stop feeding them with your freaking out energy. Solutions start showing up like they had your GPS. That gut feeling, it becomes your CEO. You stop begging God for stuff and start realizing you're living in the answer right now. Life stops being a grind and starts being a flow. But here's the kicker, you can't just think your way here. This is an inside job of the highest order. You gotta get still. You gotta want the truth more than you want the drama. Which leaves us with one burning question. What would your life look like tomorrow if this switch flipped in you tonight? If this hit different, if you felt that tug to go deeper, do me a solid, smash that like button, drop a 777 in the comments if you're ready for that new mind, and subscribe. We're building a tribe here, students. This is just the beginning. Let's get to work. Now, let's get real about that first point, your regular mind the Christ mind. Because if we don't get clear on what we're working with and what we're aiming for, we'll just be spinning our wheels. So picture your regular, everyday default mind. The one you woke up with today. Joel would call it the human mind or the carnal mind, and man, is it a piece of work? It's not bad necessarily, but it's limited. It's like you're trying to stream a 4K movie on a dial-up connection from 1998. The buffering is eternal, the picture's all scrambled, and the frustration is real. This mind, your everyday consciousness, is a machine built for survival in a world of opposites. It's constantly comparing, judging, labeling. It's got a playlist on repeat. One track is fear about the future, the next is guilt or regret about the past, and a whole album of opinions about everybody else. It's the internal commentator that never shuts up. It's the one that takes a simple situation and runs a full disaster movie screenplay in 2 seconds flat. It sees lack where there's abundance, sees separation where there's unity, and sees problems as solid, immovable objects. This mind believes it's running the show. It believes it's you. And because it operates from a foundation of, I am just this body, this personality, this set of memories, its resources are painfully finite. It gets tired. It gets overwhelmed. It hoards, it worries, it defends its little patch of turf. Life, from this vantage point, becomes a series of transactions and negotiations with a universe that seems mostly indifferent, if not outright hostile. Now flip the script entirely. The mind of Christ. This isn't about thinking like a historical figure. This is about tapping into the very fabric of consciousness itself, the infinite intelligence that formed the cosmos. If the human mind is the frantic, individual drop of water, the Christ mind is the whole, calm, powerful ocean. This mind doesn't operate on fear or lack. It's the operating system of oneness of principle. It doesn't see problems, it sees only its own perfect activity unfolding. It doesn't know struggle, because it is the source of all harmony. It's not a voice chattering in your head, it's a silent, knowing peace in your heart. It's intuition that feels like a certainty, creativity that feels like a download, and love that feels impersonal yet utterly complete. Here's the radical. Game-changing secret. Joel hammered home this: Christ mind isn't a reward for being good. It's not a trophy you get after you die. It is your true identity right here, right now, buried under all that static of the human mind. Your regular mind is the cloud cover. The Christ mind is the ever-present sun. The shift happens not by building something new, but by letting the old narrative fade into the background. It's the difference between listening to the ranting, anxious radio DJ and switching the dial to a clear, steady frequency of pure, silent signal. One is chaos, a browser with 50 tabs open, each one playing a different anxiety tune. The other is that cosmic Wi-Fi infinite bandwidth, connecting you directly to wisdom, grace, and solutions you couldn't even compute with your limited, dial-up mentality. The human mind figures things out. The Christ mind already knows. This is where most folks trip up, and it's the reason the whole thing can feel so frustrating, like a treasure hunt where the map keeps blowing away. We've been conditioned, absolutely programmed, to believe that the good stuff, the peace, the power, the connection is out there. We think it's in a certain church, in a specific book, in the words of a particular teacher, or in some future achievement we haven't nailed yet. We become spiritual seekers, which sounds noble, but Joel would gently correct us. He'd say that seeking implies you don't already have it. And if you start from that premise, you're doomed to an endless quest. You're like a fish swimming frantically through the ocean, asking every other creature, "Excuse me, can you tell me where to find the water?" The monumental shift, the absolute pivot point, is internalizing this. It's not out there, it's in your core. The Christ mind, that cosmic weave, isn't a signal you need to hunt for. You are the receiver, and the receiver is perfectly, inherently tuned to the broadcast. The static, the chaos, the dial-up noise, that's the only thing that's ever been in the way. We're looking for a spiritual experience when we are, right this second, a spiritual being having a human experience. The gold isn't at the end of a rainbow you have to chase, it's the very ground you're standing on. If you just stop digging frantic holes and instead get still and recognize the terrain. Think of it this way. Imagine you're in a room with a magnificent, blazing fireplace. But the windows are dirty, or the curtains are thick, and you've got sunglasses on. You feel cold, you're straining to see, and you start wishing for light and warmth. You might read books about fireplaces. You might attend lectures on the properties of heat. You might even travel the world looking for the perfect, warm room. But the whole time, the fire is right there, roaring. The work isn't to find the fire. The work is to clean the windows, draw back the curtains, and take off the shades. The seeking has to stop so the discovery can begin. Ditch the search. That's the radical instruction. The human mind is a seeker by nature. It's always wanting, lacking, reaching for the next thing to complete it. The Christ mind is completion. It is the very substance of your being. When you ditch the search, you aren't giving up. You're surrendering the exhausting, external scavenger hunt and turning your attention inward to the source. You stop asking the universe, "Give me peace," and you begin to affirm, "I am the very place where peace resides." You stop begging for strength and start acknowledging the infinite well of it at your core. This is what Joel meant by, "Within you is the kingdom." It's not a geographic location you pilgrim to. It's a dimension of consciousness you quiet down enough to inhabit. Discover the signal. This is the active practice. It's the daily, moment-by-moment choice to tune out the shouting of the world and the chattering of the personal mind, and to listen for the hum of something far more constant and true. It's in the pause before you react in anger. It's in the unexpected spark of kindness for someone who irritates you. It's the sudden, clear knowing of what your next right step is, without any logical reason. That's the signal. It's always broadcasting a frequency of love, of intelligent design, of harmonious action. Your regular mind picks up the noise of fear, separation, and drama. Your true core, the Christ mind, is eternally tuned to the divine station. The practice is simply to stop fiddling with the dial on the noisy station and let it naturally click back to its home setting. The warmth of the fire, the clarity of the signal, it was never missing. You were just facing the wrong way, convinced you were in the dark. So you've caught the concept. You get it intellectually. The Christ mind is the ocean, you're the drop. The signal is within, not out there. That's the map. But a map isn't the territory. Knowing the recipe isn't the same as tasting the meal. This is where the rubber meets the road, or rather, where the spiritual road dissolves beneath your feet and you find yourself walking on what feels like air. This is the moment of the flip. It's not an upgrade. It's a complete takeover. It's when the information you've been studying in the spiritual textbook suddenly becomes the blood in your veins and the air in your lungs. It ceases to be a theory you apply and becomes the reality you inhabit. This flip is subtle, but its consequences are earth-shattering. It's the difference between holding a diamond and as becoming the light that shines through it. Before the flip, you're using your human mind to try and understand God, to grasp principle. You're the subject, and the Christ consciousness is the object you're examining. After the flip, that relationship is reversed, or better yet, it dissolves entirely. The Christ mind becomes the subject, the active agent, and what you thought was you becomes the transparent vehicle for its expression. You're not trying to think the right thoughts anymore, you're being thought through. You're not trying to muster up love, you're being loved into existence, moment by moment, and that same love pours out without any effort on your part. It's a passiveness that is more powerful than any action you could ever take, because you've yielded to the only actor there really is. This is what Joel meant by being daily. It's the quiet, continual surrender of the driver's seat. The human mind, that proud, anxious, planning entity, has to step down. It doesn't get annihilated, it gets relegated. It becomes the servant, handling the practical details of life, but it is no longer the master, no longer the source of your identity or your decisions. The anxiety doesn't just lessen, its root is severed. Why? Because anxiety belongs to the little self that believes it's alone and in charge of outcomes. When the flip happens, you know, not believe, but know that you are the instrument of an infinite cause. An instrument doesn't worry about the symphony, it just plays its note when and where it's directed. The pressure is off. You're no longer manufacturing your life, you're witnessing it unfold from a place of profound, unshakable safety. Knowing about the ocean is one thing. Suddenly finding yourself buoyant, carried by its current, is the flip. You stop swimming with your own frantic effort and discover you are held by a grace that does the work. You realize your entire sense of self was just a collection of old ideas, reactions, and stories, and underneath it all was this silent, solid, loving presence that was never not there. It's not an emotional high. It's often incredibly quiet. It's a fundamental reorientation of your entire being from a foundation of lack to a foundation of wholeness. The questions change. You no longer ask, "How do I fix this?" You begin to listen for, "What is the truth of this situation?" Because you trust that the intelligence that formed galaxies is handling the itinerary of your life. You move from being a seeker of truth to being a place where truth reveals itself. And in that revelation, everything, every challenge, every relationship, every moment of joy or pain becomes sacred, becomes the very classroom where this new, yet ancient, identity is lived out, breath by breath. And this is where we get to the nitty-gritty, the practical magic of it all. Because when you start living from that flipped reality, from that core of Christ mind, the world doesn't suddenly turn into a cartoon paradise. The bills might still show up in the mailbox. The traffic might still be a nightmare. People might still say things that, on the surface, feel like they're designed to push your buttons. The circumstances of the human scene don't necessarily evaporate into sparkles and light, but you change. Your point of contact with them changes. This is the profound truth. Problems don't vanish. You stop feeding them. The energy source, the power cord, gets yanked. Think of a problem like one of those inflatable yard decorations. It's big, it's waving around, it seems solid and real and in your way. Your human mind sees that thing and immediately starts reacting. It's a menace! It's an obstacle! It starts pumping air into it, the air of your worry, your frantic planning, your resentment, your fear of what it means. You give it story, you give it weight, you give it a future where it ruins everything. You're not just looking at an inflatable figure anymore, you've created a whole movie where it's the villain. You are, quite literally, feeding it with your own mental and emotional energy. You're keeping it inflated, alive, and scary. Now, shift to the perspective of the Christ mind. From that anchored, silent core, you look at the same situation. You see the inflatable figure for what it is, a temporary form, empty on the inside, flapping in the wind of circumstance. The Christ mind doesn't deny its appearance. It just recognizes that its substance, its reality, its power to affect your peace is an illusion you've been sponsoring, so you stop pumping the air. You don't feed it with a storyline of doom. You don't grant it authority over your inner state. You simply witness it from the place of the knower, the place that knows only the reality of harmony, of divine adjustment, of one infinite power. Without the constant stream of your fearful attention, the problem begins to deflate. It might still be there, but it's limp, manageable, no longer a towering monster. It's just a situation. And a situation, to the Christ consciousness, is merely raw material for the revelation of a higher order. This is the secret to what the world calls miracles. It's not that a physical law is broken. It's that the situation is no longer being sustained by the collective belief in its solidity and permanence. When you withdraw the fuel of your personal reaction, your panic, your sense of injustice, your why me, you create a vacuum, and nature, especially spiritual nature, abhors a vacuum. Into that space flows the intelligence and activity of the divine. Solutions appear, often in ways you couldn't have engineered. People show up with the right word or help. An internal clarity cuts through the confusion. The problem hasn't been wrestled to the ground by your human will. It has been recontextualized, seen from a higher altitude where pathways and possibilities invisible from the ground become clear. You're not battling shadows on the wall anymore. You've turned to face the light source, and in that light, the shadows lose their definition and their threat. The energy you used to spend fighting phantoms is now freed up, conserved, and redirected. You become efficient, not with the efficiency of hustle, but with the effortless precision of a natural law expressing itself. The struggle isn't removed from the picture, it is removed from you. You are no longer the struggler. You are the witness to a grand, intelligent unfolding, and your only job is to not reach out and plug the energy cord back into the illusion. This brings us to the most profound change in your day, to day living, the shift that rewrites your entire relationship with existence. When you're anchored in the human mind, life is transactional. You're in a constant state of negotiation with a universe you perceive as separate from yourself. You pray, you beg, you barter. God, if you just fix this, I'll do that. Universe, send me a sign, and I'll believe. It's the stance of a beggar at the door of a vast mansion, hoping for a scrap from the table, feeling the chill of being outside. Your spirituality becomes a series of rituals performed to get a desired result, and your peace is contingent on whether or not the results show up. It's exhausting. It's a theology of lack, and it keeps you perpetually in the position of a needy child. The flip changes everything. It moves you from begging God to being in the flow. This isn't just a nicer way to think. It's a seismic relocation of your identity. You are no longer the beggar at the door. You realize, with a shock of recognition that turns into a quiet hum of certainty, that you are in the mansion. More than that, you are an integral part of the household itself. The abundance, the intelligence, the creative power you were pleading for isn't being withheld. It is the very substance of your true being. You're not asking for water from the well. You realize you're sitting in the middle of the spring. The begging stops because the need dissolves. What is there to ask for when you consciously abide in the source of all that is? Being in the flow is not about everything going your way according to your personal human plans. That's just a more sophisticated form of begging, demanding the universe align with your little blueprint. The flow is something far more intelligent and gracious. It is the conscious alignment with the divine current, the harmonious activity of the Christ mind as it expresses itself in, through, and as your experience. When you stop begging, you start listening. You become receptive. Your prayer ceases to be a list of requests and becomes an inner silence, a tuning of your being to catch the direction of the current. Guidance replaces guesswork. You find yourself doing the right thing at the right time, not because you figured it all out, but because you were nudged from within. Opportunities present themselves. Synchronicities become commonplace, the normal language of a life lived in conscious unity. In the flow, you are an agent of the divine, not a petitioner. Your work is to get your personal sense of I out of the way so that the infinite, I am, can do the doing. You write, but you feel words coming through you. You solve a problem, but the solution arrives as a flash of insight you can't claim to have manufactured. You comfort a friend, and the perfect words are spoken, leaving you wondering where they came from. You are in action, but there is no actor. There is only the activity of grace, and you are its witness and its point of expression. This is the ultimate freedom, the heavy burden of personal responsibility, the belief that you alone must engineer your survival and success lifts. It is replaced by a sacred responsibility, the responsibility to stay out of the way, to maintain that inner silence, that yieldedness, which allows the flow to move unobstructed. Your life becomes less about making things happen and more about letting the divine happen through you. The struggle to build a life is replaced by the awe of watching a life, capital L, reveal itself, with you as a grateful, amazed participant in its unfolding story. This final point is the master key, the practical discipline that makes all the difference between just having a beautiful philosophy and actually living in that flipped, flowing reality. It sounds deceptively simple, but it's the core of the entire spiritual path Joel laid out. It's the inside job, stillness over struggle, all the seeking, all the begging, all the frantic trying to figure it out or fix it. That's the struggle. It's the human mind's only tool, and it's a tool that, when applied to spiritual realization, is like using a hammer to perform heart surgery. It's the wrong instrument. Struggle implies two opposing forces, you and the problem. It reinforces the very sense of separation we're trying to transcend. When you struggle for peace, you're acknowledging that peace is somewhere else, and you must fight your way to it. It's a losing battle because the battlefield itself, the arena of duality, is the illusion. Stillness is the opposite force. It is not passive, it is intensely, actively receptive. It is the conscious decision to lay down the weapons of the personal will, the analyzing, the worrying, the planning, the forcing, and to become quiet. In that quiet, something monumental happens. The noise of the human mind begins to subside. And as that noise fades, what's left? The signal, the hum of the Christ mind, the presence of the I am. Stillness isn't about creating a blank mind. It's about ceasing to interfere with the mind that is already there, already perfect, already whole beneath the turbulence. It is in stillness that the flip is felt. It is in stillness that you stop feeding the problems. It is in stillness that you move from begging to being in the flow. This is the ultimate inside job because no one can do it for you. No teacher, no book, no ritual can grant you this stillness. They can point to it, they can describe the door, but you have to walk through. And the door is within. It's the turning of attention away from the chaotic drama playing on the screen of your life and toward the silent awareness that is watching the screen. That shift of attention, That inward pivot is the essence of the work. It's not a struggle to achieve a new state. It's a surrender into the state that has always been. You're not building a ladder to heaven. You're removing the planks of thought and fear that you've nailed over the skylight. The light was always there. The practice, then, is a relentless return to this inner stillness. It's not a one-time meditation in the morning, though that's a wonderful start. It's a moment-by-moment homecoming. It's catching yourself in the middle of spinning a worried story and consciously dropping the thread. It's feeling the surge of anger and, instead of riding the wave, pausing to find the still, silent depth beneath the emotional storm. It's doing less, mentally, so that more can be done through you. This is the yielding Joel spoke of constantly. You yield the throne of your consciousness. You dethrone the frantic, problem-solving me, and you allow the sovereignty of the silent, all-knowing I. In that yielded stillness, resources are drawn upon that are not your own. Solutions emerge from a logic higher than reason. Strength flows in that has no connection to personal grit or willpower. It is the demonstration that your true power lies not in exertion, but in alignment, not in noise, but in a profound, listening quiet. The struggle was always the human mind's attempt to be God. The stillness is the soul's allowance for God to be itself, right where you are.